Mars is known as the god of war. Venus, the ball of the thumb just here, is known as the goddess of love and battles. This is why Mars sits so closely to Venus, because we fight for those who we love. A clearly marked vertical line on the inner Mars mount is a sign of great courage, a sign of strength and resistance. Ultimately, it is a sign of endurance, an ability to persevere when the going gets tough. It's a very positive sign, and there are a number of examples I could use to provide someone with this marking might have. Battles are not always physically fought. This could be someone who has fought a long and hard legal battle, someone who has persevered where others would not. Multitude of vertical lines seen on the inner Mars mount is almost as though the elements of desire are spilling over and merging with courage, and courage has separated and the energies have dissipated, and so there's a lack of focus here. So this is a potential violent nature and also over sexualized drive and determination. It's possible a person with this marking could be quite brutal in terms of their relationship matters. It's also a sign of potential bronchitis. This is, in fact, the area of the lungs. There are two main areas, I believe. It's just here as well, and here, and also actually just here as well. There are three main areas, sorry. But this here certainly pertains to the lungs. It represents the lungs. So this is a potential sign of bronchitis, at the very least, a tendency towards it. Ross found on upper Mars tends to show a very argumentative nature, someone who tends to find themselves leaning towards attracting conflict, magnetized towards negativity in social settings, and sort of enjoys arguing. There is a potential tendency here to be inclined towards um, committing acts of bodily harm, and I would think this person is quite physically aggressive and potentially dangerous, stubborn, and likely not going to change or be able to change or challenge their own thoughts and opinions, mostly feelings. If you've seen any of my other videos regarding stars, first of all, note that a star, for it to be a star in palmistry, must be isolated, not touching any other palmar lines, minor or otherwise. And it has to have 5 points or more. Now, a star on the inner Mars mount is a shocking sign of, quite often, a shocking physical bodily harm. So something like a gunshot wound or a stab wound, this is what this might represent. Particularly if found on the right hand, because the right hand shows us what's physical and practical material, whereas the left shows us what's within. This is potentially a sign of quite an explosive temper, quite an aggressive person, someone who is likely to cause physical harm to others. If found in the left hand, then they are liable to explosive feelings of jealousy and rage. The triangle on the inner Mount Mars is something you'd hope to see on the hands of a military tactician, a war leader, a prime minister at war, or potentially an academic of military history. Triangles often represent study and an ability to soak up information, to learn, and to apply that knowledge productively, to create some sort of fortune, which is why triangles are so often associated with fortune in palmistry. And this really shows military prowess, not necessarily innately. This is triangles are often they show signs of how people have learned to develop that market. It isn't without hard work and credit where it's due. This shows the aptitude for warfare and military mind, military tactics. Now, the square on the inner Mars mount is a little bit different, and actually in some ways the opposite to the star, because it shows protection against sudden bodily harm. You might see this on the hands of someone who was protected by someone else, or perhaps they protected themselves in what could have been a potentially fatal moment. And I mean, I suppose if found in the left hand, it shows that potential, that strength to leaven against one's own temper, to show an ability to keep their emotions in check. They may well have a strong amount of drive, determination, courage, bravery, but they won't let this get out of hand or out of control. And this one is not a good sign. Grills are never good. It's really showing a blockage of energies, and that's kind of a vague way to put it. It shows here an inability to imbalance here, a chemical imbalance, an inability to control one's own emotions. And uh, as a result, a person with this sign is very likely to succumb to their own anger, their own negative feelings, rage, jealousy, lust, and anger. And as a result, most people with this marking, and I've never seen anyone with this marking, thankfully, succumb to quite a violent end because they tend to mix with the wrong people and do the wrong things. I would likely think this sign would be on the hands of violent criminals, and it's also a sign of bleeding out. It's a sign of hemorrhage. As I say, it's a sign of a violent end. So I would expect to see this on the hand of someone who had been shot, likely in the lungs, and bled out. So there we go. I'm going to end on a very positive note there. Let me know what your thoughts are on this video on the 7 signs uh, in the inner Mars mount. And for watching, please subscribe.